Most people have something of a bumpy road along the way. No one has the easy slide down the path of life. I think it's one of the many unifying factors that if you're okay with telling your story, guaranteed someone else is too.
Welcome back to the Not By Chance podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tim Thayne, and today I'm joined by someone whose story is as inspiring as it was hard-earned. He's a former NFL quarterback. His name is Eric Kramer, and Eric is special to me in a lot of ways. I remember seeing you play when I was pretty young. You were playing. And you spent a decade in the NFL playing for teams like the Lions, the Bears, the Chargers.
Yeah.
And what really makes your story so remarkable, and I'm so excited that you're here with me, isn't just what happened in your NFL career, but it's really the comeback that you've made off the field after a lot of loss and depression of your own. And if we go back in time, Eric, you and I met 17 or 18 years ago,
right,
when your son Griffin was in a treatment program. And I had the privilege of working with your family during that transition home. And we stayed connected for several months back then. But then life, I think, got kind of moved on. And it wasn't until years later, after you had endured this incredible loss, survived your own suicide attempt, and began this long healing kind of recovery, that you reached back out to me. And what has changed in your life at that point was that you discovered this mission that I see just bubbling in you to just reach out and make a difference, that what you've been through will make a difference in the lives of other people. And it's just been very inspiring to me to watch you feel driven by this mission. And ultimately, you wrote this book called The Ultimate Comeback: Surviving a Suicide Attempt, Conquering Depression, and Living with Purpose is the subtitle. You've also since then established a couple nonprofits. One is the Eric Kramer Passing Camp, and the other one is called Mental Health Touchdown.
right.
And really excited to have you share some of the vision you have with that as we get into the show a little bit later on. So we'll talk about what it really means to make a comeback in this situation, and the lessons that can be learned as we look at your life and your drive, and ultimately your decisions now to try and help young people and their families along a better, more strengthened family and better mental health. So, Eric, there's a lot to say about you as we kick this off, but I've been really looking forward to this opportunity to introduce you to our audience, your powerful mission, your amazing story. So it's really an honor to have you here. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tim. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate the build up. And you're right. It's been quite a journey. No matter what part of it's been quite a journey. And so, I guess to go start at the end and come forward a little bit, back near the end of 2011, my son Griffin, who had, had a tough road in his life, and through no fault of his own, was born with a brain deficiency, and that he had to kind of quietly and more silently work through his entire life. Mm-hmm. And that ended in an overdose and a death by overdose. And he had been clean and sober for, I want to say, about a year and a half at the time. And so that will hit you or hit me as a form of sadness a depth of sadness I had never experienced before. And but to go even further back, how you and I met, you're right. It was when Griffin had come home from a wilderness camp, therapeutic wilderness camp in Utah, and the workshop that you brought with Homeward Bound was simply, I didn't know you could um, uh, set up and structure a family so intentionally, and uh, amazing experience that was. And still to this day, it's the most powerful experience I've ever had. And uh, it just brought a way of thinking about other people, myself included, and a way of communicating also that I'd never heard of. And so I think the whole, solution talk model of really accentuating, kind of observing what somebody already does well and accentuating and consistently reminding them of that. It's a conscious thought to do that. And to be able to do that over time, it's an amazing thing what it does to someone else. And so it's a very thoughtful way to go through life. And I'm very grateful for having had that experience with you too.
Well, thank you, Eric. It means a lot to hear you say that. And I have to say, I've worked with a lot of people over time, and you really stand out among a very few that have embraced the principles and really truly saw the power in and kept hold of it for this long. It's really quite amazing what you've done. And I want to go back just a little bit if we can. And you've shared a little bit about that kind of dark place you're in. Mm-hmm. I'd like you, if you could, share a little bit more of that story, more of the details of what ultimately led to the suicide attempt, and then again how you kind of pulled out of that after coming out of the hospital.
Yeah. So as you might imagine, Griffin he had a lifelong battle.
Yeah.
with himself, and eventually it was around the time, Tim, that he went to that wilderness camp that just prior, in fact, that there was a neuropsych evaluation done on him. The therapist that my then wife and I were seeing was part of a group of doctors, one of them being a neuropsychologist. And so she did an evaluation on Griffin. And at that age, I think he was about 13 or 14. At that age, it doesn't take, it's an adult, I think it's like a day, right? A full day. They broke this one up into maybe 3 days-ish. And what came back was that Griffin had some frontal lobe problems, meaning that he couldn't stay organized. Things that we'd seen his whole life couldn't be. He didn't have the capacity to be organized. He didn't have the capacity to sit and listen to a teacher, and or take notes, or unknowingly sabotage the very relationships he was seeking.
Yeah.
And it was just a painful process to watch happen. And so in any event, Griffin, when he went into 10th grade, it wasn't long after school started. I want to say this was probably October or November of that 10th grade year, is he went into a drug treatment facility. I want to say facility, it was a house. And and so there was, I believe it was about 90 days. And then he transitioned from there to an outpatient. Where in an outpatient, he was living at home, but it was kind of like living and sleeping at home, basically.
Yeah.
And
kind of a day treatment program and
correct. And that was the best I had ever seen Griffin in his entire life. And they had reintroduced school in sort of this one-on-one, almost two-on-one, like two teachers to one student. And he gained a level of confidence that I'd never seen before. Pick a subject, it didn't matter. Like, could be school, could be football, could be anything, people. And he had a level of engagement that I'd never seen. And it was very uplifting. And then when Griffin neared the end of that outpatient program, I could sense a turn. And by that, I mean, it went from, oh, mom and dad, thank you for getting me into this program. Otherwise, I would be dead or in jail, to, oh, that was just brainwashing. Well, no, it
Mm.
wasn't.
Hmm.
And so it proved that, that my worst fears were realized, and there really wasn't much I could do about it. My then wife and I, we were separated. And so Griffin had chosen to live with Marshawn full time. And when Griffin went, so did Dylan. And so that was a very tough time.
Mm.
And it wasn't long after that where my mom, who had already, prior to Griffin passing away, earlier, so that was in the end of October. Earlier that year, in the day after Mother's Day, my mom found out she had stage 4 uterine cancer.
Mm.
So she was battling that the whole time. And then for about a year there, she was the person that I had never seen before. And she was like the whole guard was down.
Mm.
And we grew very close at that time. And then she passed away in mid-July of the following year. And it was around that time that my dad had he had some untreated acid reflux that then turned into esophageal cancer.
Mm.
And so there's no getting out of that one. And so that was about a 3-year-ish just downward spiral. And so I felt, Griffin was gone, and Dylan, for all intents and purposes, was gone, not permanently, but not living with me.
Yeah.
And both my parents had now departed permanently. And
Hmm.
so it was this feeling, I think I was just 52-ish or something at the time. And the one thought that I remember having from back then was that, the people were going that way, not coming this way.
Mm.
And so,
They're all leaving.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so, in my experience, which wasn't the first time I had had depression, but my experience with it then was kind of over time, I began isolating myself. Those were dark, dark days, and I remember somehow coming up with the idea that not only would I be better off if I wasn't here, everybody else would be better off without me.
Mm.
And so I think I took all the steps required to not be here. And fortunately, um, pulling the trigger and putting the gun underneath my chin uh, proved successfully unsuccessful.
Mm.
And and
Yeah.
um, and so
Fortunately for you, for your family, the remaining family, for the rest of us.
yeah.
And, you mentioned that it wasn't the first time you've been through depression, and
Mm,
your story is so interesting. And I really recommend your book to everybody out there. I have it right here. I have
thank
my
you.
own signed copy, which I love, The Ultimate Comeback, because you get into also just the experience of family life that you
Mm,
grew up in, the challenges there, your journey to finally, miraculously, I think, in a lot of ways, ultimately starting in the NFL. Quite a twisty, windy road
yeah.
to finally get there. But you've done this before where there's been kind of everything kind of against you, and you ended up on top and succeeding. And then this wave of that you've just described of losses, hitting. And to that point, I think a lot of us have experienced at least a little depression,
Hmm.
maybe enough so that we could almost imagine being in that same place you were in. enough that we could say, I sort of get it
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And let's jump now to the kind of the post attempt and successfully unsuccessful point in time, because I'd love to hear kind of what started to happen for you when the healing starts to take place and ultimately this sort of mission starts to form for you.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear how that came about.
Well, so I mean, I'm not a doctor, right? Never don't have any knowledge of how the brain works, but I do have over time. Now I've come to know something. There was a period of time that I don't remember much of anything, and when I say period of time, I mean 2 or 3 years at least. And so it wasn't like I woke up out of a coma and said, "Oh, let's go have a mission."
Right.
And it really took a lot of time. We are now just over 10 years from that day.
Okay.
And I'd say the first 3 or 4 years, at least, were, it started out like a baby would have to learn how to walk and crawl and talk and eat and go to the bathroom on its own, and all of the things that a baby would do, I did. And it went from that to eventually, doing kind of, I wouldn't say normal everyday stuff, but that led to little baby steps. And then eventually I felt pretty good. There's one thing in life I do have learned over the years, and that's the game of football. I've always loved either playing it or teaching it at some level. And then, combining mental health with that became apparent to me. And really, Tim, it's from you. And one of the things that was so apparent to me that I really gravitated towards was the idea of the home team, and consciously and actively starting to observe in others who would make a good home team member.
Yeah.
And then for young people to consciously do that, it doesn't matter the age. And so I just think the two together go so well together that
I'm glad, Eric, I'm glad I put team in there, because maybe that really triggered something for you, because you've been part of so many teams, right?
Well, and usually in life, when you're part of something bigger than just yourself, it has a gravitational pull, and it people on that team can be inspirational to each other and kind of collectively move it all forward.
If you're tired of having power struggles with your teen over freedoms and privileges, put the ball in their court and have them create a plan for how they're going to earn back that freedom. We've got a tool for you. It's free. You can find it at trustandfreedom.trusty.com. You can find that in the description below. It's so helpful to see someone who's kind of been at the peak of success in a career, and very people would know you, that you're a person going through the hardships that everybody else is, and that did not inoculate you from all of the tests and challenges and all of that. So it makes you an amazing spokesman for your mission. And what's it like for you, Eric, to get up every day? I know that there's still the ups and downs, but what's different now about sort of having a mission and a purpose that you've really embraced versus maybe when you didn't?
Well, it's kind of like saying, what's it like with the sun versus without it? One's dark, one's
That's a
very
big
light.
difference.
So the therapist I see, she the other day, just a couple weeks ago, she says, "How is it that you never seem to like? It doesn't matter what happens in front of you, you always keep going." And I go,
Yeah.
"I don't know. I just like I see it, and therefore we're going to do it." And I think it's helpful to me to just see life that way.
Hmm.
And it can all start with a little pebble thrown in the water, and that's it. And then
Yeah.
you just keep going forward, and you grab people onto your home team, and away you go, and you kind of get lit up together that way.
What's so inspiring to me too about that is, yes, you can create this momentum, and you are. But what's interesting is it's so other focused, and as I've watched you, this really strong desire to help others, and it could be very easy. It'd be very easy for a lot of us to stay in kind of a self-centered place. But do you think that focusing outside on others, do you think that's part of the, I guess, the blessing of better mental health now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Like if I was to call it a recipe, that would be in the recipe. And I
Hmm.
remember whenever it was you were back, May or June of this year, giving
Hmm.
that coach's workshop for our passing camp, and it took place in a coach's office, a nice coach's office, which was wall to wall whiteboards.
Yeah.
And I remember you telling me, Eric, what if you could fill up this entire all 7 or 8 whiteboards with.
Now let me just make sure the audience understands that you're talking about the Eric Kramer Passing
I
Camp,
am, yes.
nonprofit that
Yeah.
is a very unique vision you have that combines the training of these young athletes with kind of a holistic approach to helping them develop and helping them develop resilience and leadership, and including their parents and their family in the process. So I think it's a one of a kind scenario out there for athletic training that's going on. And so with that background, now I want you to
Yeah.
go ahead and continue to explain it.
Yeah. So there you are, Tim, giving our, kind of leading our very interactive workshop. And during one of the breaks, you looked around and you said, what if you could fill up all these whiteboards with characteristics that 3 years from now, the kids that came in as freshmen, the interpersonal characteristics they would have along the way. What if you could fill all those up? And that's it. That's exactly it. Like it's the impact that we could have on those, not just those families, those kids and those families, but the video series that's going to come out of that, and the documentary that's going to come out of that,
Yeah.
is that uh, that's the little pebble right there that is thrown in the water, and it's so much bigger than the game of football, for instance. The
Hmm.
game of football is a nice vehicle to use and keep people focused on, hey, getting better at, you're going to get better at football for sure, but you're going to get better at being you as well.
You know what's so interesting about the timing of this podcast is that college football just kicked off. And all over the United States, people are just going crazy waiting for this to happen, for their favorite teams to play
Yeah.
and see these players out there on the field executing the game plans, et cetera. I'm one of them. I'm a big fan of football.
Right.
And we've got you on the podcast, who navigated all of that, and like I said, got to the highest level playing the game. But here you are. When I meet with you, Eric, your passion is just as high, if not higher, on the mental health scale and strengthening the family scale as it is playing this game, which so many of us are huge
Mm,
fans of.
right.
I love that you've got room. It's almost like a family that has a child, their first child, and when that second one's coming, you're not sure you can love them as much. And then they get there, you go, yeah, you can. It's a different kind of love. You can love it just as much.
Right.
But I see you as kind of that, being able to do that with both these two very intertwined, and we don't realize that that's all intertwined. No matter our
Yeah,
whole life is, it's
that's
connected.
right. That's right.
But the fact that you see it holistically, and you kind of know that if you can help these young athletes develop holistically in their relationships, in their ability to cope with the ups and downs of life, depression, challenges, stress, all of that, learn some skills and all of that, they're actually going to be better players, happier,
Yeah,
and have a bigger impact, kind of that ripple effect that you're
yeah.
talking about. So it's an amazing vision.
I'll try to make it brief. A brief example of what you're
Yeah.
describing this took place, I want to say a couple years ago, where I want to do this passing camp back then. This
Hmm.
is going to be much better than it was back then.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I had a difficult time getting coaches to even uh, coordinate like a Zoom meeting, right? And so one guy who was he it was just him and I. And he goes, Eric, you probably won't remember this, but back when I was in high school, he goes, uh, Coach Croson, who was there at that coach's workshop,
Yeah.
he said he used to bring a group of us over to Gura High School, and I was one of those kids. And he goes, you have no idea the impact you had on my life. You have no idea. And this is after I had him read your book
Mm.
and taking the reins.
Yeah.
And so and we talked for about, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes about that. And I said, now see right there, you have me ready to run through a wall for you.
Yeah.
It's just the opposite of maybe what you would think, like, high intensity screaming at somebody is a way to motivate them. No, it's really not.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and getting someone to believe in themselves, that's motivating.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. So you're going to be working with these athletes over a 3-year period
Yeah,
and their families,
that's right.
and the coaches on your staff
Yeah,
are going through the training as well, so that you can have that kind of positive impact on those young men and their families. And that's just the beginning. I know there are so many other things on your agenda, things you want to accomplish in the mental health realm, in the NFL, and making a difference
that's
there on
right.
that side. So it's really, really exciting. As you kind of go forward, is there anything else you'd like to kind of, I guess, anything you'd like to share with the audience as
Yeah, I
we?
think you just touched on it. Is that I think that let's take pro football for example. Um, each I'd say in the last 4, maybe 5-ish years, uh, not just pro sports, not just college sports, not just companies, not just schools, have all taken this approach that we need a mental health professional in our building, hopefully more than one. And so the idea that um, that mental health and mental health training is a big deal, is important. Why it's taken these many thousands of years, I don't know.
Mm.
But because it has, who cares? Here we are. And I think that being able to, Tim, for me, to pair up with you and take and dive into to working with some current players, some players whose career in football has ended, or basketball, or doesn't matter, and ended, and then they've transitioned into some other part of life. I guarantee you, while they were playing, when they transitioned, and afterwards, they've met some challenges in life they didn't see coming.
Hmm.
And so I think having someone like you, who and me, who have lived that life and have seen other people encounter some issues, but have also found some. But you, who have also found and can map out solutions uh, that are founded in science and medical, in the medical profession. Um, I mean, that's who would say no to that? Who would raise their, if you were in a room of people and you go, who's this not good for? How many hands are going to go up? Zero. That's how many.
Right. Right. Yeah, I am so excited. The timing is perfect, I think, for this all to happen. And when I think about, this podcast and the things that I feel very honored that you've wanted me to be a part of what you're doing. But it's, to me, it's this full circle moment.
Mm,
Uh, we first connected almost 20 years ago, 18 years
yeah,
ago.
yeah.
Um, and that was a privilege at the time to be a part of your journey for a season, and then all these years later, after all the trauma, the loss, and your healing, and ultimately the mission that has been growing inside you. I think you got to this point where it's like there's something in you that just has to get out. It has to get out,
Yeah.
and so that's happened.
Well, there's, friends of mine that might have been pro baseball players. They might have been some other field in life or whatever. I can't tell you how many people have said, you know what? Hey, my childhood wasn't a breeze either.
Yeah,
And I think there's a unifying factor that most people have
yeah,
something of a bumpy road along the way. Like no one has the clear slide, easy slide down the life path of life.
no.
And so I think it's one of the many unifying factors
Hmm.
that if you're okay with telling your story, guaranteed someone else is too.
See, that's the other thing. I think people are drawn to you right now because you've been so open, so real with your story, including putting it in a book. That they really are drawn to you because they know that you understand them and the challenges at some level that they wouldn't have thought of that someone in your position would be able to do. So to see how you've taken all of that and created this mission, the book, The Ultimate Comeback, your nonprofits, just the impact you're making today and will, really multiply that in the future. It's really moving.
I appreciate that, Tim, and you having me on today and telling me how inspirational me talking about my journey has been for you. In the same way, we're not paired up here by coincidence,
Yeah,
not by
yeah,
chance, in other words. And
right,
and so
right.
I think you've been an inspiration to me in many, many ways. And I think that's what gives me, I think, so much hope going forward, is that the combination of what we can bring uh, it feels limitless.
Oh, it's so exciting, and thanks for your kindness and sharing that. For those of you out there listening to this or watching this video, I really encourage you to pick up Eric's book, The Ultimate Comeback. You'll learn a lot more about Eric and including kind of the vision he has now with these nonprofits. I'll make sure that there's a link in the show notes to his webpage, website, and just invite you to get to know what's going on, support any way you can. And I know that you're going to find some benefit as you get to know Eric and what's helped him get through some really tough times and his vision for the future. So thanks again, Eric, and thank you to everyone who tuned in today, and we'll see you next time.